The restaurant was quieter than I expected for our 10th anniversary. Candlelight flickered across the white tablecloth. Catching the edge of the silver cloche, I'd asked the waiter to place in front of her. She smiled that same practiced smile.
Happy anniversary.
The one that used to make my chest tighten with love, and now only made it tighten with something colder.
Oh no.
I watched her lift the lid. The smile froze, then cracked. Beneath the dome sat the divorce papers, thick and official, beside a neat stack of printouts. Bank statements, credit card records, secret loan agreements, all in her name. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt she'd hidden from me for years. Her eyes snapped up to mine. What? What is this? My voice came out steady, almost gentle. Happy anniversary, Claire. She reached for the papers with trembling fingers, as if touching them might make them disappear. The room felt suddenly too warm, the air thick with the scent of rosemary and roasted lamb neither of us would eat tonight. I could hear my own heartbeat, slow and deliberate, counting down the seconds I'd waited years for. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 41 years old. I used to be the kind of man who believed love meant fixing things, no matter how broken they became. I was a senior software architect, steady job, steady life, the guy everyone thought had it all together. 10 years ago I stood in a church and promised to cherish this woman forever. Tonight, in this softly lit restaurant full of strangers pretending not to watch, I finally kept that promise to myself. Instead, she whispered my name like a plea. Daniel. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked, the way I hadn't let myself in years. The faint lines around her eyes I used to trace with my thumb in the dark. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. All the small things I'd memorized and then tried so hard to forget. You thought you could keep bleeding me dry forever, I said quietly. But I stopped being your safety net a long time ago. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Around us, conversations dipped, then rose again. People sensing the shift in the air like animals before a storm. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low enough that only she could hear. Every time you told me I was imagining things. Every time you cried and said I was the one hurting you. Every time you made me doubt my own memory. I wrote it down. I saved it. I waited. A single tear slid down her cheek, catching the candlelight like glass. I felt nothing. Not triumph. Not even relief yet. Just the strange hollow calm that comes after carrying something heavy for so long you forget what it feels like to stand up straight. How did we get here? How does any story like this really begin? Let me take you back. Back to the night I met Claire Evans at a rooftop party in downtown Seattle. I was 31, freshly promoted, still believing the world rewarded hard work and quiet decency. She was 29, radiant in a red dress, laughing in the center of a circle of people who all seemed to orbit her. When she turned that laugh on me, it felt like stepping into sunlight after years in fluorescent office light. We talked until the city lights blurred below us. She told me she was an events coordinator, creative, ambitious, full of dreams bigger than her bank account. I told her about the code I wrote, the systems I built that kept hospitals running and planes in the air. She said I sounded like a man who fixed things. I laughed and said I wished life were as logical as software. 3 months later I proposed on that same rooftop. She cried and said yes before I finished the question. The first year was golden. We bought a small house in the suburbs with a yard big enough for the dog we swore we'd get someday. I worked long hours to pay the mortgage. She planned beautiful dinners and surprised me with weekend getaways we could barely afford. I thought the credit card bills were just part of building a life together. Then came the second year. The fights started small. I'd come home exhausted and find her scrolling through designer websites, shopping carts full of things we didn't need. I'd ask gently if we could slow down the spending. She'd cry and say I didn't trust her, that I was trying to control her dreams. I'd apologize. I'd work extra contracts. The balances climbed. By year 4, I noticed strange charges. Large cash withdrawals. Payments to accounts I didn't recognize. When I asked, she'd turn it around so smoothly I ended up comforting her for making her feel accused. "You're paranoid, Daniel. You always think the worst of me." I started waking at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations in my head. Was I paranoid? Was I the problem? One night I found a second phone hidden in her winter coat pocket. The screen lit up with a message from someone named Jay. Just a heart emoji. Nothing more. When I confronted her the next morning, she laughed. Said it was an old phone for work events, that I was seeing things that weren't there. She cried for hours. I felt like the worst kind of man. That was the first time I wrote it down. Not on paper yet. Just in a password-protected note on my laptop. Date, time, what I'd found, what she'd said. I told myself it was to keep the facts straight. To stop the gaslighting from working. Year 6 brought the secret credit cards. I discovered them by accident when a collection agency called the house looking for her. She swore she'd taken them out to surprise me with a vacation, that she'd planned to pay them off before I noticed. Another tearful promise. Another apology from me for doubting her. By then I'd stopped arguing. I just watched. I watched her buy clothes she never wore. Watched her take girls' trips that cost thousands. Watched her smile at me across the dinner table while lying about where the money went. And I started planning. Quietly, carefully. I opened a separate bank account she didn't know about. I rerouted small percentages of my freelance income, nothing big enough to trigger suspicion. I paid down my own cards first, built credit in my name only. I photographed every suspicious statement, every hidden bill I found tucked in drawers or buried in email folders. I learned to smile back at her the way she smiled at me. Practiced in the mirror until it looked real. Year 8 was when the debts became impossible to ignore. She started forging my signature on loan applications. I found out when a bank called to verify income for a line of credit I'd supposedly co-signed. She cried harder than ever that night, swore it was a mistake, that she'd been desperate to keep up appearances for my colleagues, that she was ashamed. I held her while she sobbed into my shoulder, and the next day I hired a lawyer. Quietly, I gave him everything I'd collected over the years. The notes, the photos, the forged documents. He told me I had grounds, not just for divorce, but for fraud charges if I wanted to press them. I told him I wanted to be free, nothing more. Year 9, I played the perfect husband. Anniversary gifts, surprise flowers, weekend trips I paid for in cash from my secret account. All while transferring assets, protecting what little was left. She never noticed the shift. Or maybe she did and thought she still had me wrapped around her finger. Either way, our 10th anniversary arrived right on schedule. I booked the restaurant she loved, the one with the river view and the overpriced tasting menu. I told her to wear the red dress from the night we met. She did, and now here we are, back in that candlelit moment where everything tilts. She's staring at the papers like they might bite her. Her breathing is shallow, quick. I can see the calculations flashing behind her eyes. How much I know, how much I can prove, what comes next. Daniel, she whispers again, voice breaking. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll change. I almost laugh. Almost. Instead, I slide my wedding ring off slowly, place it on top of the stack of debt statements. It makes a soft clink against the paper. No, Claire, I say. We can't. The waiter appears at the edge of our table, uncertain, sensing the tension. I signal for the check. As I stand, I look down at her one last time. The woman I loved so fiercely I nearly lost myself. I used to think love meant carrying the weight for both of us, I tell her quietly. Turns out it just meant learning how strong I really am. Then I walk out into the cool night air, leaving her alone with the ruin she built. Free, finally free. But freedom has a strange taste. And that's only the beginning of the story. Let me tell you how I got here. How I planned every step. How I became someone capable of this moment. It started long before that anniversary dinner. I remember the exact night I decided this marriage would end on my terms. It was late autumn, sometime after midnight, the kind of quiet where the house creaks like it's talking to itself. Claire was asleep upstairs, or pretending to be. I was in the basement office, the one she rarely came down to because the stairs made her knees ache. The glow from my monitor was the only light, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. I'd just found another statement. This one tucked inside a folder labeled Tax Documents 2018, like she thought I'd never look there again. $23,000 on a card I didn't know existed. Jewelry, hotels in cities she'd told me were work conferences, spa retreats, all while I was picking up extra shifts to keep the mortgage current. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I thought they would. Instead, they felt steady as I took photos of every page with my phone. Dates stamped. Uploaded to a cloud drive she had no access to. Triple encrypted. That was the night the fog lifted. Not all at once. Not with trumpets or lightning. Just a quiet click inside my chest. Like a door I'd been leaning against finally gave way, and I stepped through into a colder, clearer room. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, and listened to the furnace kick on. The low rumble felt like the house breathing with me. I told myself, no more reacting, no more begging for truth, no more letting her tears rewrite reality. From now on, I would act. The plan didn't come fully formed. It grew slowly, the way ice forms on a window one molecule at a time until you can't see out anymore. First, I separated the money. I started with the smallest streams. Freelance gigs I'd always funneled straight into our joint account. A bug fix here, a consulting call there. Nothing big enough to raise flags. I opened an account at a credit union across town, one she'd never driven past. Used my mother's maiden name for the security questions. Deposited cash when I could. Let it sit. Then I started paying myself first. 10% of every paycheck. Then 15%. I adjusted the direct deposit in tiny increments, spread across months. Claire never looked at the pay stubs anymore. She just waited for the balance to hit the checking account and spent whatever appeared. I watched her do it. Watched her buy a new handbag the same week I quietly paid off one of my own cards. Watched her book a weekend in Napa while I transferred another chunk to the secret savings. I learnt to lie with silence. When she asked why I seemed distant, I told her work was stressful. When she complained we never went out anymore, I said the budget was tight and held her while she sighed against my shoulder. When she cried about feeling unloved, I made love to her like nothing had changed. And every time, a small part of me died a little more, but another part grew stronger. I built evidence the way other men build model ships, painstaking, patient, a private investigator for 3 months, just long enough to confirm the affairs weren't imagination. Photos of her leaving hotels with men whose names I never learned. Receipts from dinners I'd paid for while I was supposedly working late. I didn't look at the photos often. Once was enough. They lived in the same encrypted drive as the financials, labeled neatly by date. I met with the lawyer every few weeks, always during lunch hours at his office downtown. Always paid in cash from the growing account. He was an older man, calm voice, wedding ring worn thin from decades of turning it when he thought. He never judged me, just nodded as I handed over folders thicker each time. "You've got more than enough for an airtight divorce," he said one afternoon, rain streaking the windows behind him. "Fault state, fraud, hidden assets. You could take everything." I shook my head. "I don't want everything. I want out clean. No alimony. No shared debt. Just gone." He studied me for a long moment. "Revenge?" he asked quietly. I thought about it. Really thought. "No," I said finally. "Justice. There's a difference." He didn't argue. We planned the timing carefully. The house was in my name, only my down payment, my credit, my sacrifice. She'd never contributed to the principal. The lawyer said I could force a sale, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted to walk away the way she'd bled me, quietly, steadily, until nothing was left for her to take. So I refinanced in secret, pulled out just enough equity to clear the last of the joint cards, then transferred the new loan to my name alone, paid the lawyer's retainer, stocked the hidden account until it held more than she'd ever guessed I was worth. I started erasing myself from our life together, changed passwords on every account she might access, removed her as beneficiary on the life insurance, updated my will everything to my sister, nothing to Claire. I bought a small condo 20 miles away, cash down payment from the secret savings, closed on it under an LLC the lawyer set up, told no one, not even my closest friend at work. Some nights I drove there after she fell asleep, sat on the empty hardwood floor with a bottle of something cheap and listened to the quiet. No arguments echoing off the walls, no tears that weren't mine, just the hum of a refrigerator that belonged only to me. I practiced leaving in my head, imagined the day I'd carry one suitcase out to the car while she was at yoga, imagined never coming back. But I waited, because waiting was part of it. She needed to feel safe, needed to believe she still owned me completely. So I kept playing the role, brought her coffee in bed on Sundays, kissed her goodbye every morning like clockwork, planned the 10th anniversary dinner months in advance, let her pick the restaurant, let her believe it was her idea to make it special, all while the clock inside me ticked down. There were moments I almost broke. One night she came home late, perfume different, lipstick smudged. She crawled into bed smelling of someone else's cologne and curled against me like a cat, whispered that she'd missed me. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, feeling her breath against my arm. I wanted to shove her away, wanted to scream every truth I'd buried. Instead, I turned over, kissed her forehead, and said, "I missed you too." The lie tasted like rust, but I swallowed it, because the plan was bigger than the moment. Because every small betrayal she added to the pile was another brick in the wall I was building between us. By the 9th year, The hidden account held enough for a fresh start. The evidence folder was thick enough to bury her. The condo keys sat in my desk drawer at work, taped under the bottom drawer where no one would look. I was ready, but I waited one more year. Waited until the exact date we'd stood in that church and promised forever. Waited until she felt most secure. Because that's when it would hurt the most. Not the money. She'd find ways to land on her feet. She always had. But the realization that I'd seen her, really seen her, that I'd stopped loving her long before she noticed, that everything she thought she controlled had been slipping through her fingers for years, and she'd never even felt it. That was the real revenge. Not the papers, not the debt she'd face alone, but the mirror I was about to hold up. The one that would finally make her see what she'd become, and what I'd become to escape her. I look back now and wonder who that man was. The one who could smile across the breakfast table while calculating her downfall. The one who could hold her hand in public and feel nothing but cold strategy. I told myself it was survival. I told myself it wasn't revenge. It was balance. But some nights, in the quiet of the new condo, I'm not so sure. Because balance doesn't usually feel this heavy, and freedom doesn't usually taste this close to ash. But that night in the restaurant was still coming, and I hadn't even served the papers yet. The months leading up to our 10th anniversary felt like walking a tightrope in slow motion. Every morning I woke before her, made the coffee strong the way she liked it, left her mug on the counter with a little note. Have a beautiful day. Love you. I'd been doing it for years, but now the words were deliberate. Armor. A performance so flawless she never questioned the man beside her. She'd come downstairs in one of my old college hoodies, hair tousled, eyes soft with sleep, and kiss my cheek like nothing in the world was wrong. I'd smile back, feel the warmth of her lips, and catalogue it the way a prisoner counts days on the wall. Because every gentle moment was evidence. Proof that I could still play the part. Proof that she still believed she had me. Work became my sanctuary. Long hours in the glass office downtown, lines of code scrolling past like therapy. My team thought I was gunning for another promotion. I let them think it. Told them I was saving for a big surprise for Claire. They slapped my back, told me I was a good husband. I nodded and felt the words land somewhere hollow. Lunch breaks were for errands. I'd drive to the new condo, let myself in with the key that never left my pocket, slowly filled it with the essentials. A bed, a couch from a second-hand site, plates that didn't match the set we'd registered for together, books I'd hidden in the basement for years. Each trip I brought one more box from the house, small enough to fit in my trunk without notice. Old photos of my family, my grandfather's watch, things that were mine before they became ours. Claire never noticed items disappearing. She was too busy planning the anniversary. She wanted it perfect, talked about it constantly. Showed me dresses online, asked my opinion on menus, hinted at wanting to renew our vows, just us, somewhere quiet after dinner. I listened, nodded, told her whatever she wanted sounded wonderful. Inside, I felt the countdown like a pulse. 60 days. 45. 30. I met with the lawyer one last time in early spring. Cherry blossoms drifting past the window like slow pink snow. He slid the final papers across the desk, thick, official. My signature already in place when needed. Servers on standby, he said. Process server, I mean. You give the word, he'll deliver the same day you choose. I shook my head. No, I'll do it myself. He raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. We reviewed the financial separation one more time. Every joint account closed or transferred. Every debt in her name alone now isolated, ready to surface. My credit pristine. The house refinanced solely in my name. The condo titled separately. I was a ghost in my own marriage, and she never felt the chill. 2 weeks before the anniversary, she started acting strange. Not suspicious, just needy in a way I hadn't seen in years. She'd reach for my hand across the dinner table, ask me to stay home from work events, cry during movies, and burrow into my chest like she used to when we were new. One night, just after midnight, I woke to find her watching me in the dark. "You okay?" I whispered. She nodded, eyes shining. I love you so much, Daniel. Sometimes I worry I don't say it enough. My heart stuttered. Not from tenderness, from fear. Fear that she sensed something. Fear that the mask had slipped. I pulled her close, kissed her hair, told her I loved her too, felt her relax against me, and stared at the ceiling until dawn, wondering if guilt had finally caught up with her, or if this was just another layer of manipulation. I never asked. I didn't want to know. The day of the dinner arrived soft and golden. Early May, the kind of evening where the air smells like lilac and possibility. I left work early, showered at the condo, put on the charcoal suit she loved, the one she said made my eyes look bluer, drove home to pick her up. She was radiant. The red dress from our first night, altered to fit her now, like it had waited a decade for this moment. Hair swept up, diamonds in her ears that I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary, back when I still believed in milestones. She twirled for me in the hallway. "Do I look okay?" I stepped close, adjusted an invisible strand of hair, kissed her softly. "You look like the woman I fell in love with." She smiled, eyes glassy with emotion, and I felt nothing. Not hatred, not love, just the cold clarity of a man who'd already left. We drove downtown in comfortable silence. Her hand on my thigh. My fingers laced through hers at stoplights. I parked near the restaurant, held the door for her, watched heads turn as we walked in. The Mota D led us to the corner table by the window, river glittering below us, candles everywhere. Perfect. Too perfect. We ordered wine, toasted to 10 years. She talked about the future, a trip to Italy, maybe kids soon. How lucky we were. I smiled, nodded, listened. And when the waiter asked if we'd like the special dessert course, I said yes. Told him to bring it under the cloche. Told him I had something special planned. Claire's eyes lit up. A surprise. She whispered, leaning forward. "The biggest," I said. My voice was warm, steady. Inside, my pulse was thunder. The waiter returned, set the silver dome in front of her with a flourish. She laughed, delighted. "What did you do?" "Open it." Her fingers trembled just slightly as she lifted the lid, and there they were, the papers, neatly stacked. Divorce petition on top, followed by the evidence, bank records, loan documents, photos, everything. Time slowed. I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, horror. Watched the color drain from her cheeks. Watched her mouth form my name without sound. The restaurant noise faded to a distant hum. It was just us. Finally. Just the truth between us. She looked up at me, eyes wide, pleading, broken. Daniel, I didn't flinch. I'd waited too long for this moment to ruin it with mercy I no longer possessed. But the night wasn't over. Not yet. There was still the walk out, the aftermath, the life I'd built in secret waiting for me, and the woman I'd loved, sitting alone with the wreckage she'd made. I leaned forward, voice low, calm, happy anniversary, Claire. Then I stood, left cash on the table for the wine we never finished, and walked away. But I haven't told you what happened after I left the restaurant, how she reacted when the silence settled, how the debts came calling, how I disappeared into the life I'd built without her. That part comes next. The part where everything finally fell. I stepped out of the restaurant into the cool May evening, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft thud that felt final. The river walked beside me as I walked to the car, lights shimmering on the water like scattered coins. My hands were steady, no shake, no rush of adrenaline, just the quiet hum of a man who'd finally laid down a burden he'd carried alone for years. I didn't look back. I knew she was still sitting there, staring at the papers, the candle burning lower, the waiter hovering uncertainly at the edge of the table. I knew because I'd pictured this moment 1,000 times. Every detail, her face, the silence, the way the world would keep moving around her while hers stopped. I drove to the condo in silence. No radio, no phone calls, just the low rumble of the engine and the city sliding past the windows. When I pulled into the underground garage, the space felt like home in a way the old house hadn't in years. My space, my key, my life. I poured a drink, something amber and expensive I'd bought for this night, and stood at the window looking out over the lights of a neighborhood she didn't know existed. My phone started vibrating almost immediately. Claire, I let it ring. Again and again. Then the texts began. Daniel, please come back. This isn't funny. We can talk about this. I'm sorry. Whatever you think I did, we can fix it, please. I read them without feeling the pull I once would have. Set the phone face down. Let it buzz itself silent. Eventually, the calls stopped. That was when the real reckoning began. Not for me, for her. The next morning, I woke early, made coffee in a kitchen that smelled only of coffee, no lingering perfume, no trace of her. I went to work like any other day, smiled at colleagues, joined the stand-up meeting, typed code that kept systems running smoothly while mine finally was. Around noon, my lawyer texted, "Papers served officially at the house this morning." She was home. Signed for them. I nodded at the screen. Good. The debts started surfacing almost immediately. She'd hidden them well, but not well enough. Private loans, store cards, lines of credit in her name only. Things she'd taken out when the joint accounts hit limits. Now the grace periods ended. Now the collectors called. I know because she told me. Not directly at first. She showed up at my office 3 days after the dinner. Security called up. "There's a woman here saying she's your wife. She's upset." I told them to let her come up. She looked like she hadn't slept. Hair pulled back roughly. No makeup. Eyes red-rimmed. She stood in the doorway of my office, clutching her purse like a shield. "Daniel." Her voice cracked on my name. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She didn't sit. "How could you do this?" she whispered. "How could you plan it all and never say a word?" I leaned back in my chair. "You taught me how," I said quietly. Her face crumpled. She told me the calls had started, that one creditor had already frozen an account, that she didn't have enough to cover the minimums, that she'd lost her biggest client because rumors were starting. Someone at the restaurant had recognized her. Word spread in her small circle. She asked if I would help, just temporarily, just until she got on her feet. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd once moved mountains for. No, I said. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man saying it. Then she started to cry. Not the practiced tears I'd seen so many times. These were messy, raw, ugly. She sank into the chair then, head in her hands. I didn't move to comfort her. When she finally looked up, mascara streaked down her cheeks. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, she said. I wanted us to have nice things. I wanted to feel special. And then it snowballed, and I was ashamed, and I didn't know how to stop. I nodded slowly. I know, I said. I watched it snowball for years. She flinched, asked if there was any way I'd reconsider, if we could try counseling, if I could at least loan her enough to stall the worst of it. I told her the divorce was uncontestable now, that every debt was hers alone, that I'd already removed myself from anything shared. She sat very still, then whispered, "You hate me." I thought about that. No, I said finally. I stopped feeling anything strong enough to be hate a long time ago. She left quietly after that. No scene, no begging in the lobby, just the soft click of the door closing behind her. Over the next weeks, the fall accelerated. Friends we'd shared reached out cautiously. Some took her side, said I'd blindsided her, that marriage was about forgiveness. Others who heard the details I shared only when asked and went silent. Her parents called once. Her mother cried on the phone, asked how I could be so cruel. I told her gently that cruelty would have been staying and letting it continue. They haven't spoken to me since. Claire moved out of the house by the end of the month. Couldn't afford it alone. Rented a small apartment across town. Sold the designer bags online. Took contract work that paid half what she was used to. I know these things because the city is small when lives overlap for a decade. Because mutual acquaintances talk. Because sometimes, in weak moments, I looked at her social media before blocking her everywhere. She posted less and less. The curated life faded. No more filtered sunsets in Napa. No more brunches with bottomless mimosas. Just occasional photos of coffee cups and books. Captions about new chapters and learning to stand on my own. I didn't feel triumph reading them. Just a strange, hollow recognition. She was doing what I'd done years earlier, rebuilding in secret. Only hers wasn't secret anymore. Everyone saw the fall. One night, about 4 months after the dinner, she called from a new number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Her voice was different, quieter. No tears this time. "I sold the red dress today," she said. I stayed silent. I kept thinking I'd wear it again when things got better. But they're not going to, are they? "No," I said. She took a breath. "I'm sorry, Daniel, for all of it. I know you won't believe me, but I am." I believed her, and it didn't matter anymore. "I hope you find peace," I said. Then I hung up. That was the last time we spoke. The divorce finalized quietly 6 months later. No court appearance needed. Just signatures on dotted lines. I signed mine in the condo, early morning light coming through the window, coffee cooling beside me. mailed it back the same day. When the decree arrived, I put it in a drawer and didn't open champagne. Didn't feel like celebrating. Freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the absence of weight. Sometimes it's waking up without bracing for the next lie. Sometimes it's realizing you've become someone you don't fully recognize. Because planning revenge, no matter how justified, changes you. It teaches you patience like a predator. It teaches you silence like a grave. It teaches you that love can turn into something cold and precise without ever passing through hate. I told myself it was justice. I told myself it was balance. But justice doesn't usually leave you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering if you're the villain after all. And balance doesn't usually feel this lonely. Claire's life didn't end. She survived. Maybe even grew. I hear she's dating someone new. Someone who doesn't know the history. I hope he's kind to her. I hope she's honest with him. I hope she's honest with herself. And me. I'm still here. In the quiet condo. Building systems by day. Building a life by night. One careful piece at a time. Some nights I stand at the window and look out over the city lights, and I wonder what I lost that I'll never get back. Not her, but the man who believed love was enough. The man who thought fixing things meant staying no matter the cost. The man who didn't know how strong he could be until breaking was no longer an option. That man is gone. And sometimes, in the silence, I miss him. But I don't regret what I did. I just understand the price. Revenge isn't fire. It's ice, slow, clear, unforgiving. And once it forms, it changes the shape of everything it touches, including you, forever. There's one more part to this story. The part where I tell you what comes after the fall, after the reckoning. After the silence settles, the part where I try to live with what I became to be free. People think revenge ends with the moment of confrontation, the dramatic reveal, the walk away. But that's just the spark. The fall is slower. It's the long echo after the crash. For Claire, it started the week after the divorce papers. She fought at first. Hired a lawyer with whatever credit she had left, tried to claim half the house, half my retirement, half the life I'd protected piece by piece. Her attorney requested discovery, asked for financial records going back 7 years. My lawyer sent them everything, not just mine, hers, the hidden accounts, the forged signatures, the affairs caught on camera. Her lawyer called mine 2 weeks later, advised her to settle. She did, quickly, quietly, with nothing. That was the first real crack. The moment she understood I hadn't just left, I'd won. Completely. After that, the debts came due all at once. Like dominoes, she'd lined up herself years ago, finally tipping. One card maxed, interest compounding, another in collections. A personal loan from a friend she'd never repaid, now demanding with interest. She lost the apartment she'd rented, the nice one with the view she'd posted about online, captions full of fresh start, downsized to a studio above a dry cleaner. I know because the return address on the final divorce papers was different, handwritten in her neat script. No note inside, just the signed decree. I heard from a mutual friend, someone who'd stayed neutral, that she'd started working 2 jobs, event planning by day, bartending weekends. Her hands, once manicured every 2 weeks, now rough from citrus and ice. Her smile, once weaponized, now just tired. She stopped posting altogether for a while. Then, months later, a single photo appeared. Her in the studio, natural light, no filter, holding a cup of tea. Caption: learning what enough feels like. I stared at it longer than I should have. Felt something twist in my chest. Not pity, not satisfaction, something closer to recognition. She was doing what I'd done, stripping away the excess. Facing the mirror, only hers was public. Everyone who'd watched her shine got to watch her dim. That's the part people don't talk about in revenge stories. The humiliation isn't private. It's witnessed, amplified, shared in whispers at parties neither of us attended anymore. I sold the house 6 months after the divorce. The one we'd painted together, where I'd proposed in the backyard under string lights, where I'd found hidden bills in drawers and second phones in coats. I sold it fully furnished, walked away with cash in hand, used it to pay off the condo early. No mortgage, no ties, just mine. I started traveling. Not the lavish kind she'd dreamed of. Quiet places. A cabin in the mountains for a week. A small town on the coast where no one knew my name. I'd sit on porches and watch water or trees for hours, trying to feel something again. Joy, relief, anything. But mostly, I felt the absence. The space where anger used to live, now just quiet. Some nights I'd dream about her. Not the fights, not the lies, the early days, her laugh on that rooftop, the way she looked at me like I was the answer to something. I'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Not her anymore. The man I used to be. 1 year after the dinner, I ran into her. By accident, downtown farmer's market, early fall, crisp air. She was at a stall buying apples, hair shorter, no makeup, wearing a coat I didn't recognize. She saw me first, froze, then smiled. Small, real. "Hi, Daniel." Her voice was steady. I nodded. "Hi." We stood there a moment, people moving around us. "Looks like rain later," she said. "Yeah." Another pause. "You look good," she added. "You too." Not true for either of us, maybe, but kind. She shifted the bag on her shoulder. "I'm better," she said quietly. "Not great, but better." I believed her. "I'm glad." She looked at me a long moment, like she wanted to say more. Instead, she just nodded, turned to go, then stopped. "Daniel." "Yeah. I really am sorry." I looked at her, saw the weight in her eyes, the kind that doesn't lift easily. "I know," I said. She walked away then, didn't look back. I stood there until she disappeared into the crowd, felt the twist again, deeper this time. That night I sat in the condo with a drink I didn't finish, stared out the window, thought about the man who'd planned for years, who'd waited for the perfect moment, who'd served cold justice on a silver platter. And I wondered if he'd been right, or if he'd just become another kind of prisoner, one who won the war but lost the peace. Because freedom isn't just walking away, it's what you do with the space left behind. It's learning to live without the story that defined you, the victim, the planner, the avenger. I'm still learning. Some days I feel light, like I can breathe deeper than I have in years. Some days I feel the ice still inside me, the part that calculated every move, that learned to live without trust, without softness. I date sometimes, nothing serious. Women who don't know the history, who see a quiet man with kind eyes and no ring. I'm honest when it matters. Tell them I was married once, that it ended badly, but I don't tell them how. Don't tell them about the years of silence, the hidden accounts, the anniversary dinner. Some stories are too heavy to carry into something new. Claire and I will never speak again. I know that. She's building her life. I'm building mine. Two separate orbits now. No collision left. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I think about balance, about justice, about what I told myself it was, and I wonder, did I escape her? Or did I become the thing I was escaping? Cold, controlled, capable of planning someone's ruin with a smile. I told myself it wasn't revenge, it was survival. But survival changes you. It teaches you to strike first, to trust no one, to measure love in evidence, and some lessons you can't unlearn. I don't regret leaving. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't even regret the way I did it. Not really. But I regret what it cost. Not the money, not the house, not even the years, but the part of me that died quietly in the planning, the part that believed people could change, that love could heal anything, that staying was noble, that man is gone. And freedom, for all its quiet, sometimes feels like exile. From him, from her, from the life we almost had, before the lies, before the debts, before the ice set in. This is the aftermath, not triumph, not tragedy, just a long, slow fall, for both of us, into who we are now. Separate, scarred, surviving. I hope she finds warmth again. I hope I do too. But some things, once frozen, never quite thaw the same. And that's the real price. Not the ruin I left her with, but the cold I carry now, forever.